Hi, this is Wendy Graf, and I'm the playwright of Exit Wounds, which is opening August 25th at International City Theater in Long Beach. If you want to know about the play, stay tuned and listen more. As a child, I always was, the typical, let's do it, let's put on a show and and writing little things. And, I always loved writing. And then, as a teenager, got involved in the theater department. I wanted to be an actress. And so I was getting ready to go to college and I wanted to be a theater arts major. And my mother said, "Can you sing like Judy Garland? Can you dance like Eleanor Powell?" No, then forget it. Don't waste your time. Have something to fall back on. Be a teacher. And I kind of listened to my parents, which, I mean, if it happened again today, I would be like, no, I'm following my own star. So I kind of had a roundabout, journey back to the theater. I always loved the theater, and I was always been a theater goer. And then when I was teaching, I would be the one who did the Christmas show and the spring dance show and all that. So then I decided I didn't have a secondary teaching credentials. So I went back to school. I took the test for secondary, so I could be a drama teacher in the junior high or the high school. This is when I was at Burbank Unified School District a million years ago. And there were no jobs. So at that point, I had met my husband, and he said to me, "You know what? Why don't you follow your dream? You're still young. Why don't you follow your dream?" So I actually went back to like UCLA Extension and got what was the equivalent of a theater arts major. And I taught, just to make money, I taught drama in a private school. And, so I thought I wanted to be an actress. So then I spent time, going to dance class, going to acting class, all that. And I belonged to a company called Theater East that was out in North Hollywood, and I would write scenes, or I would write things for me to act in, and I probably wrote my first full-length plays there. And I also did stand-up. I had a regular time at the Comedy Store on 11:30 on Saturday nights, where probably my husband was the only person in the audience at some point. But I started working with a very successful writer-producer who had a television show at the time, and he brought me a stack of scripts, and he said, "Read these and write one, and you'll make $1 million in television." And I thought I was a comedy writer, so I did. And then I started working in television. I worked on a lot of television shows, including Murder, She Wrote, and a number of other television shows. And then when I was pregnant, I know this is a long way to get to this, but then when I was pregnant with my second child, I had a job offer on a show called Growing Pains. And I went in, and I was 9 months pregnant, and they said, "We're breaking stories this weekend in Lake Arrowhead." And I was like, "I'm having a baby." And I never worked in television again. And television shows, I think, these days have become a lot more mother-friendly and childcare friendly and all that, but not at that time. So then I wrote some screenplays that might have gotten optioned, whatever, but never got made. So I was really, really discouraged with the entertainment business. And my husband is a criminal attorney. And one day he said to me, he was complaining about his private investigator. And I said, well, I think I can do that. I mean, I did it on Murder, She Wrote. So I started working with him as a private investigator. We didn't know at that time that it was probably illegal, and I had to go to school and I had to get a license. Well, I ended up going to Nick Harris Detective Academy, and which was one of the most fun things I ever did. And being a PI is being the actor, the director, and the writer all in one. So I did that for a while. And then my daughter, when she was 13, she went away to Idlewild Arts in Idlewild, and she wrote a play. And she came back in her school and she wrote it and she produced it and she directed it. And I said, I got to get back to the theater. That's my love. So I wrote my first full-length play and it was produced, and the rest is history. When did it go from an interest to an obsession? I think it's kind of like this. It's when you're in production or developing it, it's definitely an obsession. I mean, it's just all you think about 24/7, and you lay awake in bed at night and you think, oh, this scene, oh, that line, whatever. There's been time, and there's been times when sometimes it becomes a negative obsession, because, if you've got something and you can't get it going and it's not working and all that, it kind of is a downward spiral. So I would say it was a negative obsession then. And then a lot of times what I had to do is I had to step back, reboot, breathe. And a lot of times, I was able to do this through travel, which then inspired other plays. It's a unique format because it's live. It's happening at the time. You can feel the audience. As an actor, you definitely can feel the audience, and you play off the audience and you play off their energy. As a writer, I mean, sitting in the theater, I've had a couple of times where I've been in the theater where nobody knew who I was, when I was doing a play out of town, say, and I sat among the audience while the play was going on and nobody knew who I was. And it's kind of amazing to be able to sit there and hear what they're saying and feel what they're saying. And you can't do that in a movie or television. There's I guess kind of like a glass screen or a fourth wall, but you're right there. You can reach out and touch it and you can feel it. And I think the audience is your partner. The audience is part of the production, and you don't get that with any other art form. My process in creating plays. Well, first I have to get the idea. And I've gotten the idea in a lot of different ways. I've gotten the idea inspired by something that I saw during travel. I've gotten the idea. I look through the newspaper every single day, and I cut things out and I save them and I file them, and and then when I get like an idea that just really stays with me, that becomes kind of a mini obsession, to build on that, then I have to walk around with it for a long time, because as the late, great Gordon Davidson, who was my most important mentor, always said, that's not a story, that's an idea. So you had to come up with an idea. You came up with your idea, but now you had to come up with your story. What's my story? What's my entrance point? All that. So you have to walk around with that for a really long time. Who are my characters? Who is this about? All that. And then finally, then you need to do your research, and some plays require a ton of research, and other plays require not as much research, but I really do enjoy the research part of it, and really getting into it and, reading about whatever it is that I'm writing about, and maybe watching some other shows that or movies that might touch on it in one way or another. So now finally I'm like, okay, it's ready to put pen to paper. And that I put off forever. Okay. But finally, okay, today's the day. You've got to just start writing and you can't stop. You've got to just move forward. I call it the vomited out draft. Move forward. Don't go back. Don't go back. Don't go back, because if you do, you'll just never move on. And then you can hit a wall too. You can get to page 20 and you have nowhere to go. And then you have to go back and you have to rethink it and start all over again. I know a lot of people do outlines. I used to kind of do a very loose outline when I was first starting out. And, I did a program, Page to Stage, called Operation Greenlight, the last couple of summers, where I worked with a young playwright, and we took their idea through a first draft. And the artistic director who was running the program, I said to him, I don't know if I'm the right person for you to be working with this young playwright, because I don't write outlines anymore. And he said, you've been doing it enough that you feel it inside. You feel where this should happen and where that should happen. And that's true. I think at this point, after writing, oh my gosh, 30 plays, short plays, I feel it. I feel like where things should happen. And I usually have a loose-ish idea about how it's going to end, but it could change along the way. And sometimes when I'm writing that first draft, the muse takes over me, or the characters take over me. And this is the most wonderful thing in the whole world, to be sitting there all day in your pajamas and having the character take over and lead you through the play. And that's magic. That's the most wonderful thing in the whole world. And then I know it's right. So then when I finish the first draft, I'm kind of go back and just kind of clean it up. I don't change anything. And then I used to take it into my writing groups and, read it and then get their feedback and everything, because a play is to be heard. It's not to be read or, it's to be heard, and I need to hear it. And I tend to really overwrite, because it's a lot easier to cut than it is to fill it up after you've already done your first draft. But in the last few years, maybe because of COVID and a little before COVID, what I would do is I'd invite some actors to come over and sit around my dining room table and read the play. And I might have 3 or 4 of my go-to playwright friends, and we'd eat lunch and we'd talk about the play, and I could hear it. And then I would rewrite again. And then after I rewrote again, then I would have maybe a presented staged reading, where it might be to a number of invited guests, or sometimes it's worked out that it would be in a festival, or a reading festival or whatever. So that would be more of a public response, and I'd hear it again, and then I would rewrite again. And this could go on for maybe three or 4 more times, till finally I would go to hopefully production. And then, everything can change once it's up on a stage and up on its feet as well. A play is, like I said, a play is to be heard. And my process, I kind of liken it to a sculptor who starts with a big block of marble and chips away and chips away and chips away until he finds his statue. And that's my process. It's not the words that are more important in a play format, it's the dialogue. As I said, plays are to be heard. And so you need to tell the story through dialogue and character. In a novel, it's narrative. You can have someone describing things. And film is a visual medium. So you tell your story through pictures, through film. So on stage, dialogue and character are the medium. So that's why the words are, the dialogue words are important. I won't say all the words are it's more important than any other medium, just the dialogue aspect of it is more important. But what you asked me before, why is it collaborative? Because all the parts coming together, if you have smart actors, it's cast well and you have smart actors, they can add so much. You can sit there and they can read a line or do a scene. You picture it a certain way in your head, but then they can surprise you and you go, wow, I like that so much better. A director can form the whole everything and bring in lights and sound and staging that enhances what you have so much. All I have are words on a page and a story. But when everything's working together, when you have the script and you have the director and you have the actors and you have the lighting person and the stage setting person. I mean, so many times, I remember one time with one play, the set was so stunning and so impressive. I had never even thought of anything like that. And it just helped to tell the story. It was fabulous. And I got just a thrill every night as they maneuvered that set. I gasped, when they turned these panels and they became something else. Every night I did. So when everybody's come together, and working off of each other and sparking things in each other and inspiring each other, and let's try it like this, or no, let's try it like that, and asking questions, then it's wonderful. Then you got something. I can't remember exactly where it kicked off, but somehow I got the notion, what would it be like to be the child or the family of a really terrible, evil person? So first, of course, I go to Nazis. So I watched a bunch of documentaries, Hitler's Children and Legacies and all this and watched all these YouTube things. Research is so much easier these days with YouTube because you can pull up anything. You can go down that rabbit hole all day, watching children of Nazis talk to you. And so it was interesting, and the theory behind it that all the members of the family did not respond in the same way. Some broke with their family and moved away. Some became Jewish. Some led tours at Auschwitz. Some absolutely refused to accept that their ancestor, their father, their grandfather was evil. They were in complete denial all the way to the end. So I found that interesting. So then when I thought, I don't really want, how many more Nazi shows do we need? Not another one. Then I saw an article about the daughter of a serial killer. So I go, so I read about that and I kind of thought about that, but I don't know, it didn't spark anything with me. Like I said to you before, I need to walk around with it for a very long time. And then, I don't know, there must have been another school shooting because there's been so many of them. And I thought, what if you were the family of the school shooter? And then I went back and I did a lot of research. There was a lot of research to be done on the parents and the family of the Columbine kids. There was a lot of research. The Sandy Hook guy, the Sandy Hook kid. There was a very long interview with his father in, I don't know, it was in the Atlantic. I can't even remember. And then I also read a book about the two Boston bomber kids. So I started thinking about this a lot, and so that's when I started to get my idea. And then it took me a while to figure out who was going to be the main character, and what would happen to this family. And then I had to construct, dates and times and family and everything. And that's sort of how I came up with this. Exit Wounds ask the question, how do you find redemption and move on in your life when you have a family member who committed a terrible crime? And it unfolds like a mystery. At the top of the play, we meet Linda Sadowski, who's in her 60s and is a hoarder. And the doorbell rings, and it turns out to be her second son, the older brother, who she hasn't seen in 25 years. He and the father left, and we find out why. And we find out why she's a hoarder, why she felt so guilty all these years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We find that out over the course of the play. And he comes to her and he says that he has a 17-year-old son, Danny, and he's seeing so many qualities in Danny that he saw in his brother, and he's terrified, and he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't know where else to turn. And so that's how the play goes into motion. Hidden underneath all of this is how awful gun violence is and how we need to do something about it, and children's mental health. The main themes is, how does all members of this family, how do they move on? Have they moved on? No, they haven't moved on. Why haven't they been able to move on? What does not moving on look like? It's about moving on, finding redemption, finding hope. There's also a strain about seeing a family member through the lens of another family member, so you don't ever know. Like you may never know, you don't know your son, you only see him through the lens of your brother. And I think in a lot of families, and I drew on my own experiences from this, of seeing seeing one family member through the lens of another family member and having them define who they are. Can a tragedy like this affect future generations? Can people ever live a normal life again after something like this happens? Especially now, where there's so much, social media and on television. I mean, it's like 24/7 and everybody's covering it and all that. And I also liken it to, there's a tradition, there's a Japanese tradition about if a plate or a vase breaks, they don't throw it away. They put it back together and they fill the cracks with gold. And there's also the theme of this family was broken, but it can be put back together, but you have to honor the cracks and deal with the cracks. And that's why they're gold. My director, Caryn Desai, is wonderful. I'm thrilled that she's directing it. I did a play down at International City Theater, which is the most wonderful place to work. In 2021, I did my play Closely Related Keys, and Caryn, I got to know Caryn then. She didn't direct it, but I got to know her as artistic director. And I mean, I just love her. She's just so wonderful. And so then my husband and I bought season tickets ever since then. And I've seen all the shows that are done, and she has an incredibly well curated season. But I've also watched very carefully the ones that she directed, especially this play Valley Song that she did last season, which kind of has the same, I don't know what you call it, the same this as Exit Wounds. And it was just so sensitively and beautifully directed. So when, she told me that she wanted to do Exit Wounds this season, I said, "Oh, Caryn, I'd love you to direct it." And she said, "We'll see." And then she told me, yes, she was going to be directing it. And she gets the play. We're just on the same page every step of the way. We're just on the same page, and she gets it. And I'm just thrilled to have it in her unbelievably capable and sensitive hands. The actors, Suanne Spoke. Suanne was in one of the workshop productions of Exit Wounds. There is not a better actress. She is 100%. She's professional. She's profound. There is not a false moment to her acting. She is, she's a real person on the stage. And, you asked me about, why is it collaborative? I mean, she's filled this character so much and elevated this character so much from my words on the page. I mean, I just love her in this, and she's just wonderful in it. The two other actors, Michael and Hayden, I both gave just kick-ass auditions, standout auditions, and they're really great. I mean, I'm really looking forward to their performances. I never want my audience to get anything specific out of it. I like to ask questions and leave it with questions rather than answers. I want them to come and I want them to see humanity on the stage, and I want them to maybe understand it, maybe understand people who they never understood before. And then I want them to leave and to go across the street and have a glass of wine and discuss it and talk about it in the car on the way home, or, discuss it over a glass of wine. If I can start conversation, if I can start acceptance, maybe we can change for the better. Theater has the power to change you for the better, show you a different part of life that maybe you didn't know before, or maybe you didn't understand before? Well, every single day there's a mass shooting, and every single day we hear about more and more problems with teenage mental health, and we need to stop this. We need to stop all of this. Now, this is insanity. And it's not, exit wounds isn't it's sadly as timely as it was when I wrote it in 2016. And I think the more we see all sides of it, and the more we discuss it, and the more we open it up, then hopefully someday we can have some change. Well, I always knew about it because, I had friends who were in productions and, went down to see, what show they did or whatever. And then in 2019, I had a friend who was working as the stage manager at ICT. And I knew that Lucy, my publicist, had been there for years and years and always really liked working there and everything. And he asked me about closely related keys, which had been done before. He said, I think they'd really like it down at ICT. Could I send it to Caryn Desai? So I was like, sure, And it turned out that she really liked it and she wanted to put it into her 2020 season. So I was really excited. I was really excited to do the play again because the first time I did it, there were some things that didn't work. And I wanted to take them out and futz around with it a little, and improve it. So I was really excited. And then in March 2020, all bets were off. I sort of held my breath through, March, April, May, because at first it was like, well, it wasn't going up till August. I'm sure things will be better by then. But no, so the whole season was canceled. So I was just really heartbroken about that. And then the next year, when we were starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, Caryn called me and she said, I think I can put it in for August of next year. And I said, God, that would be great. And she said, my first two shows her season starts in January. My first two shows, I'm going to do Zoom. But I think by August, we might be ready. And it turned out that it was the first production back after COVID, first live production back. It's such a beautiful theater, and the people who work there are so terrific and supportive, and it's a great vibe. And their shows are so well curated, and every one of them is just so terrific. And it's just a place that is really wonderful to work at. I was out for lunch with a friend of mine the other day, and I said, I think you should send her one of your plays. And he said, well, what play? And, we went through his plays, and I said, this one particular one. He said, oh, I don't know. I said, yes, I feel it there. I feel it there. It was about baseball. I said, it's the type of thing that they like to do. I'm telling you. I said, come down, see Exit Wounds, see the theater, and, it's wonderful. And there's not all this political infighting and, that kind of thing. It's calm, and it's supportive, and it honors the playwright. It's just a really wonderful place to work. I I think it's really, I think it's a really good play. I'm really proud of it, and I think it's going to be so filled and elevated with the actors and the director. And this is the first play that my grandchildren have ever come to, and they're coming opening night, and I'm really excited about it. And I have a 15-year-old grandson, and I told him this is a story about a 17-year-old boy, and I think they're, I'm excited for them to see it. I think it's very timely, and like I said, well, it comes. We hear about the families of the victims all the time. We never hear anything about the families of the perpetrators. And we're all victims. We are all victims of this. And that's why this is important and why I think it needs to be seen. Hi, I'm Wendy Graf, playwright of Exit Wounds, which is opening August 25th at International City Theater in Long Beach. It's a wonderful production. It's powerful, it's moving, and I hope to see all of you there. See you at the theater.